Hi, welcome to One Family. My name is Stephen.
And I'm Sandra.
And we're glad you're with us today. Today's topic is foster care and adoption. We want to just give you all the information about foster care and adoption and kind of a crash course on those subjects. So let's start real quick with foster care and what is it and why are kids even in foster care?
Kids are in foster care at no fault of their own. They are removed from their families due to abuse, neglect, abandonment, or exploitation.
Okay, and I know the answer to this, but tell us how many kids are in foster care right now on any given day.
Approximately 400,000 in the U.S., but about 100,000 are ready for permanent homes. That means they're ready for adoption. The termination of parental rights is already executed. So they are literal orphans in the full term of that.
Okay, so let me ask a quick question. Do we have enough foster families right now, in the nation, or even, we're in the state of Florida. Do we have enough homes?
I have never heard of any city, county, or state in the nation that ever says they have enough homes.
Never.
There's always a crisis of some kind. The turnover rate is so high, and kids are coming into care every day. And so the need is always there.
So why, maybe even from a biblical standpoint, why should we be even doing foster care and even talking about it?
It's a good question. In James 1:27, it says that pure and undefiled religion is caring for orphans and widows in their time of need. And so it is a biblical mandate. It's not something that we need to wonder about or think about. It might not be for everyone, but we all can do our part in caring for foster children and orphans.
And for those who are feeling like maybe they should be doing foster care, tell us what the steps are. What do we do? Like, we don't even know where to start. What do we do?
So if you're thinking about being a foster parent or know someone who is, the first step is to find out what the local child welfare agency requires. Every agency in every state requires different things, but generally speaking, and I'll speak from experience in Florida, you have to have a home study, you have to have fingerprints, you have to have local and federal background checks, and you have to complete the coursework that they require. In Florida, it's a 30-hour training.
Okay. How much is all this?
It doesn't cost you anything. Okay. The state covers all of that.
Real quick, what's a home study?
A home study is conducted by the licensing foster care agency. They come to the house to ask questions about your history, your childhood, your marriage, the family that you already have. If you have biological children, they want to look at your home. They want to see how many bedrooms and just see what space you have available. And they put it all in a report form, and they use that to best match children to your family, if that's even possible. And that's the best case scenario. That's not always the case. Best match is really hard to do when it comes to fostering because the need is so great and there aren't enough families.
So you mentioned background checks, and what if somebody has, a criminal record in their past? Can they foster?
That has happened. That has come up on many occasions, and the way that I've experienced it and I've heard is that, and not me personally experienced it, but when talking with people and helping them to navigate the system, I've learned that it's on a case-by-case scenario. So if someone is watching and they have a background that they're not sure about because of some kind of criminal activity in the past, they do need to just look into it. Don't assume that you can't foster, because we have actually known people with criminal backgrounds who've been able to be foster parents.
Now, there are people over the years who have wanted to foster and then thought they couldn't. So there's something we call foster care myths. So why don't you explain some of those myths?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. One of them is that you have to be married to foster, which is untrue. Another is that you have to be a stay-at-home parent to foster. Also untrue, you can go to work. And another one is that you have to make a certain amount of money. That's not true unless you are making or you're spending more than you make. So that all of that is counted. The other one is that you have to own your home. You actually can rent. And
What do you have? Did you mention being married?
I did.
You did. Okay, yeah. So you can be single.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one, the last one, is about your age. Some people
that's
think
right.
there's an age limit, and I actually met a lady who was 62. Her and her husband wanted to foster after they raised their children and all their grandkids lived somewhere else. And at 62 years old, they took the class and became foster parents. So as long as you're healthy, you can foster at any age.
That's amazing. Awesome. So we always say not everybody's called to do foster care, but we're all called to do something. So if you don't feel called to do it, you can help a family who's doing foster care. That's a huge help. They definitely need support. So let's move into adoption. Explain the different types of adoption that people can pursue.
So we'll talk about three kinds. There's adoption through foster care, there's private adoption, and then there's international adoption.
Okay.
Foster care adoption is the one that we're actually most familiar with because 8 of our children were adopted once we were fostering them. So we fostered them, and then when they weren't able to be reunited with family, their terminational parental rights occurred. We went to court, and then they were able to be adopted by us. So adoption.
What are the differences? Tell me the differences.
Adoption through foster care doesn't cost anything. Typically, it's no money. And if you're adopting the children that are already in your home because you fostered them, you already have a relationship with them. So that's a little bit of a plus. You also can adopt without fostering. So there is an option of just adoption. There's a website that you can visit, is adoptuskids.org. And there are lots more children than they show on the website. They're only probably have about 500 of the photo listings on there, but it gives you an idea of faces and the stories of children who are looking for family. Not all adoptable children are on that photo listing for different reasons because of their abilities or interest or any kind of protective measures that have been placed because of their situation. But that's a good place to start. If you go on that website, adoptuskids.org, you can also do a search for your own state where you can find more state-related information regarding phone numbers, children in that state, and even some information about what's expected when it comes to adoption through the foster care system.
So I go on the website, I've got my box of tissues, and I'm reading all these bios of these kids and sibling groups, and I'm crying out my eyes. And then I see a child or a sibling group that I think, this one I'm interested in, then what do I do?
Well, you might not want to go on the website too early because you can't inquire about any of those children without a home study.
That's true.
Your first step is to get your home study, and that's just by contacting your local child welfare agency and telling them that you're interested in adoption and getting that beginning that process. I also want to mention right here that if you're thinking about adoption and you're thinking it's somewhere down the line, maybe in a year or 2 or 5 years, or when your youngest child is, in school, you may want to think about giving yourself a year to 2 years of prep time. And this is why I say that. We have people that will contact us after they've tried infertility treatments or after they've decided that they want to move forward with something that the Lord had spoken to them years before. And then they get the paperwork done, do the classes, and then they wait. And the wait is so hard for them that sometimes they give up. So I recommend that you do your paperwork when you don't think you're ready yet, because it takes time to go through the process. I've had families that have gone through the process of home study and filling out paperwork and have literally waited for a year to a year and a half and sometimes longer for a match. And so people get a little bit impatient, and I always just recommend, if it's something you know you're going to do, go ahead and start the process right away.
Yeah, if it's something that you want to do in the future, one day we're going to adopt, you might as well get paper ready now, right? You might as well go ahead and be ready, because there are times when a child will come available, and you'll find out that there's a child or sibling group that needs a home desperately right now, but you didn't take the time to get paper ready. So that's so important. So what is the average age of the kids that are adoptable in foster care?
Well, about 65% of them are older, 13 years old or older. 25% are between the ages of 8 and 12, and the remaining kids are under 8 years old. However, some of the kids that are younger could be part of a sibling group. So there may be other kids that are in the older age ranges that they need to be adopted with.
Okay, so let's also talk about something called reunification, because when you go into foster care wanting to adopt, you may find out quickly that there is something called reunification, and it's a very important thing. Explain that.
Yeah, so this is just if you're fostering, not when you're adopting, because reunification can't happen once you adopt. So I just want to make that clear. But if you're just fostering, reunification is the goal to make sure the kids are returned to family, whether it's the family that they were removed from or whether it's extended family, like grandparents or aunts and uncles.
So now let's move into private adoption and overseas adoption. Now, in most cases, it's because they want to grow their family or they're having infertility issues. I know that's what we dealt with. And so let's talk about adopting privately.
Yeah, so finding an adoption agency privately takes a little bit of time. You have to do a little research. You can search really across the nation. However, it would make it easier on your travel and on your expenses if you were to find an agency within your own state. There are some different rules and regulations with adoption when it comes to when you crossing state lines. And so that's something to keep in mind. I always recommend, whether you're adopting privately through the U.S. or whether you're adopting internationally, to do your research. Look up these agencies, look up their reputation, find out if they're legitimate. Look at how they do pricing, ask questions, call them and interview them just like they would interview you to match you with a child. So the best way is to just do the research on your own by going on the internet. It's also easy to find somebody that you know that's adopted. It seems like nowadays everybody knows someone, and that's another way of just getting referral to an agency that's worked well for somebody.
Okay, the big question, how much?
Well, adoption through foster care doesn't cost anything typically. The state likes to cover those adoptions because they realize the importance of family for children versus being in a group home or some kind of therapeutic environment. The private adoptions average $35,000. And so if you're thinking about adoption, private adoption, or even international, it's time to start preparing financially, to start saving, putting money aside, selling things.
You sold our whole house once.
Not really, but
almost.
We did some garage sales. And I sold all my gold jewelry. I didn't need it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm so glad I did it.
Okay, so then overseas adoption, how much is that?
Overseas adoption can be, 50, 60,000 or more. It depends on which country. It depends on,
how long you have to stay.
Exactly. International flights, and you're talking about food and hotel stays, and depending on if you're bringing your spouse and your whole family, or if it's just you and your spouse, the loss of your job time and things like that all play a role and factor in your total cost.
So as we kind of end all of this and bring it to an ending here, if you want to foster, or if you want to adopt or do foster care, all of it is something you just have to trust God with. I always say, jump on the roller coaster, strap in and hold on, and God will lead you in this adventure. But you have to pray and ask the Lord, is it foster care, is it private adoption, is it overseas adoption, or adopting in the States? So you just have to pray about it. And but we want to encourage you to do that, because everybody should do something and can do something. If you feel like God's tugging on your heart to do foster care or adoption, pray about it. And so we encourage you really to look into it. So.
Amen. You can follow us on social media if you want to see more about what we do. And below, you can check out our link to find more videos like this. We hope this helped you and helped answer some commonly asked questions regarding foster care and adoption.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.